I'm 31 years old and I still don't sleep with the curtains open. I've never told anyone the full version of this. My parents know part of it. My therapist knows another part. Nobody knows all of it because I've never been able to say it in one sitting without stopping somewhere in the middle and deciding it sounds like something a child invented. I didn't invent it. I was 8 years old, and I know what I saw. We lived in a rural area when I was young. Small house, large property. The kind of place where the backyard ended at a tree line, and the tree line went on for about 2 miles before it hit the next road. My parents had bought it for the space and the quiet. My mother had a garden. My father had a workshop in the back. I had the run of about 3 acres and a strict rule about not going past the trees. I followed that rule. I was a cautious child. I didn't like the woods. Something about the way the light changed when you got close to the tree line, the way the air felt different. I stayed in the yard. The summer I was 8, I started seeing someone at the tree line. The first time was a Tuesday afternoon in July. I was playing near the back fence, maybe 40 yards from the trees. I looked up. I don't know why, no sound, no movement that I noticed. And there was a man standing at the edge of the woods, just standing, looking toward the house. He was too far away for me to see his face clearly. Dark clothing, tall. He wasn't moving. I went inside immediately. I told my mother there was a man in the backyard. She came out with me, looked toward the tree line. Nothing there. She walked the perimeter of the yard, checked the fence gate. No one. She told me it was probably a hiker, that the woods were technically county land and people walked through sometimes. She told me to come get her if I saw anyone again. I saw him again 4 days later. Same place, same posture, same stillness. This time I didn't go inside immediately. I stood there and looked at him. I don't know why. I think part of me needed to confirm that he was real, that I wasn't making it up. He was real. And while I was standing there looking at him, he raised his hand. Not a wave exactly, more like an acknowledgement. Slow, deliberate, like he was letting me know he could see me. I ran inside. I told my mother. She came out again. Nothing there again. This time she seemed less certain it was a hiker. My father walked the tree line that evening. He spent about an hour out there before dinner. He came back and said he hadn't found anyone, but that he'd found something else. A spot just inside the tree line, directly across from the back of our house where the ground had been worn flat. Like someone had stood in the same place many times. My father didn't tell me this at the time. My mother told me when I was an adult, 20 years later, when I finally asked her the full story. She said my father had come inside from that walk and his face had been different. She said he'd made some calls that evening, she didn't know to whom, and that he'd started leaving the workshop light on all night. He never told her what he was thinking. He died when I was 19 without ever discussing it. I saw the man 7 more times that summer, always at the tree line, always the same spot, always still, always watching. Twice more he raised his hand when I looked at him. Once, and this is the part I have never been able to fully process, he took a step forward. Just one step, out of the trees and into the open yard. Then he stopped. I don't know what he was waiting for. I didn't stay to find out. I was 8 years old and I ran inside and I locked the back door and I sat in the kitchen until my mother came home from the store. I didn't go into the backyard alone for the rest of that summer. In September, my parents enrolled me in a different school. We'd been planning to move districts anyway. And somewhere in the business of that transition, the summer faded into something I didn't talk about. Children are good at compartmentalizing. I put it in a box and closed the lid. The box stayed closed for about 15 years. I opened it when I was 23. I don't know what triggered it. A dream, I think, or something I saw on a walk that reminded me of that tree line. I called my mother and asked her if she remembered the man in the backyard. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said yes, she remembered. I asked her if she'd ever figured out who he was. She said no. She said the police had driven by a few times after my father called them, but they'd never found anyone. She said after we moved the following spring, she'd heard from the family who bought the house that they'd found things in the woods. She didn't know what things. The family hadn't stayed long. I asked her why she hadn't told me any of this when I was a child. She said, "What would I have told you? I've driven past that house once since then. Just the exterior. I didn't stop. New family, it looked like. Children's things in the yard. A trampoline near the back fence. I didn't get out of the car. I thought about stopping, about knocking on the door, about asking if they'd seen anyone at the tree line. I kept driving. Some questions are better left in the box. That's it for tonight. New story every week. Subscribe if you want more. And if you grew up somewhere rural, if you ever saw something at the edge of your property that you put in a box and never opened, maybe leave it closed. Some things are better left where you found them.